Welcome back to the Seaboard Central, everyone. I'm Tim Garland, and you're watching part 4 of the Realistic Ops series. I'm just here temporarily securing some of my track right here until this glue dries, and this is my process for doing it. I use this Alex Plus clear latex caulking to secure the track and just to temporarily use these push pins until that glue has time to set up. So in today's video, we're going to talk about yards and why they're important and why you should include yards on your layout. And I'll talk about the different types of yards and how they're used when it comes to operations, especially if you want to make your operations more realistic. So if you find that interesting, keep watching. And as always, if you enjoy the video, I appreciate a thumbs up. So without further ado, let's get started. Rail yards come in all shapes and sizes and can serve different functions or roles depending on their purpose. While most people have heard of large classification yards, which can either be flat switched or contain a hump where cars are sorted by gravity, other types of yards can be a serving yard, otherwise known as a local yard, or a storage yard, which essentially is the prototype's version of a staging yard. Large industries can even have their own yards where cars can be staged or stored until they are needed. Here we see the small Raglan yard on my Seaboard Central. Currently, it is considered a serving yard. It consists of a main line, passing siding, and 2 yard tracks. Since traffic is light on this end of the railroad, the main line serves as the yard lead. In this case, the switcher is using the main line to help sort cars in the yard for their next planned event. The dispatcher issues a track warrant for the crew, giving them authorization to use the main line to complete this work. In the event the main line will need to be used by another train, the dispatcher can contact the crew about clearing up off of the main line and voiding the track warrant, or the dispatcher can list a certain time to clear on the track warrant itself. Eventually, once Gadsden Yard comes online, Raglan Yard will transition into an interchange yard, where cars will be interchanged with both the BNSF and CSX. Using Raglan Yard in this fashion will simulate how cars reach the Seaboard Central or leave the Seaboard Central to access other parts of the U.S. National Rail Network. Having a working interchange on a layout is a great way to expand operations. Most interchanges between railroads can be fairly simple, especially if the interchange is located outside a major metropolitan area. In some cases, an interchange yard consists of only 2 or 3 tracks, and only a handful of cars may be interchanged between 2 railroads on any given day. This makes it ideally suited for model railroad operations. In the current configuration of the layout, Raglan Yard is actually serving multiple roles. Not only it is a local serving yard for the 2 customers in Raglan, but the yard tracks are also used as a staging yard for outbound and inbound traffic destined to or arriving from both the BNSF and CSX. This gives another chance to simulate the interchange operation aspect of the railroad. In a future video, I'll talk more about where certain products that are shipped by rail typically originate in the U.S. and use real prototype-based information to simulate this traffic moving on to the Seaboard Central. So be sure to keep watching this series to learn more about how to simulate realistic rail shipments inside the U.S. So let's talk about how a shipment would be handled where the movement would occur entirely within the Seaboard Central network. In this example, we'll use the ethanol shipments that originate at ADM in Raglan. With this facility actually being a small ethanol plant compared to the mammoth facilities located in places like Iowa and Nebraska, which can generate entire unit trains of ethanol, I knew I would have to approach this operation differently. At the same time, I took advantage of its small output to ship the products to a facility that could only handle inbound shipments in small batches. This makes it ideal for model railroad operations. Typically, my ADM facility in Raglan generates 2 loaded ethanol tank cars per switch. These 2 cars are way-billed to a receiver in Macon, Georgia, on the SC called Tidewater Bulk Transport, which is a bulk transfer facility. This ethanol would end up being offloaded into trucks at the TBT facility and sent to local area gasoline distributors in the Macon area. So let's talk about how rail yards, especially Gadsden Yard, will play an important role in this move. So let's look at this example of moving 2 loads of ethanol from ADM at Raglan to the Tidewater Bulk Transfer Facility in Macon on the SC. Now, if it was a unit train, it would be simple. Run the entire train from origin to destination. But we're dealing with only 2 rail cars, and it doesn't make sense economically to run one train from point A to point B. So what we need to do is group those cars together with other cars that are destined for Macon. And how we do that is we use the yard. So let's look again at the West End operating plan. So here I have train L83. L83 is responsible for working ADM at Raglan. So it originates at Gadsden on duty at 8 a.m. And so it'll go and retrieve those 2 loads of ethanol and bring them back to the yard. And it will do to be coming in back in the yard around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There, the cars will be separated and sorted out by train Y86, an afternoon yard job that goes on duty at 4 p.m. Y86 will put the cars going to Macon in the track for build train 484 here, which is a Gadsden to Macon freight. It's scheduled to depart at 1 a.m. so the cars can go out on train 184, where it'll have cars blocked for Griffin on the head end and Macon on the rear. So in an upcoming video, I'll show the switch list and work orders and how these blocks, these classification codes, are generated. And here you can see the classification code for Macon. So as these inbound trains come into the yard for outbound movements, they'll pull one of these classification codes like NS, BNSF, CSX, Carrollton, Griffin, or Macon. That way the yard job knows which trains they need to go out on and what track the yard master has designated for that particular block. So just to recap, we have L83 coming out of the yard at Gadsden, going to Raglan, working ADM, bringing their cars back to Gadsden where the cars will be sorted. Since they're arriving after 4 o'clock by Y86, they'll go to be part of 484's outbound train. They'll depart Gadsden and end up at West Yard in Macon, where they'll get sorted again and put on another job that ends up working the TBT facility in Macon and spotting the cars. So this is why the Gadsden Yard is going to be so important, because it's going to be responsible for sorting and classifying cars for outbound movements. It also serves as a serving yard, so it's both a classification yard and a serving yard, since we have locals that originate here and go work industries. And also mainline trains that start out here or terminate here. So this will be one of the most important places on the new Seaboard Central. And it's going to be very important to keep things moving. As you can see, we're really limited on space. I've here showing here a measured track only hold 8 cars. And this more than likely, this track number 10 will be assigned for holding part of L83's train. I'll probably use track 10 and 11 since they both hold 8 cars each, and L83 will average around 16 cars a day. So I hope that gave you some insight on why yards are important for operations. Next week, I'll talk about some things that the railroads can do to keep yards fluid and avoid yard congestion. So until next time, thanks for watching the Seaboard Central, and happy model railroading, everyone. If you enjoyed this video on the Seaboard Central, I appreciate a thumbs up. This helps the video show up on other people's feeds so they may find the channel. And if you're not already a subscriber, I'd invite you to join. And be sure to hit that bell for future notifications. Until next time, I'm Tim Garland, and thank you for watching the Seaboard Central.